to open up the Clarksburg Select Board meeting on March 17th, 2025, at 5 p.m. All the board members are present. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I would like to move the school update for renovation of the roof just down a little bit so we can have Diana go, because I think we might have a long discussion, so we'll let you go first so you don't have to hang around. So Diana Worth, our animal control officer.
Okay, like I was saying, new law was effective on December 19th. 5 dogs or more in a home, boarding, need license. So I don't know what Maryland is doing at what she's came up with, but she did send me something that Adams is doing because they also didn't have one, so they have to follow the law too.
Yep.
But in order for them to be issued, the animal control has to inspect before any licenses are issued for kennels or boarding.
Okay.
So, but I'm not sure if, is it Havenwood?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they are aware of the law, but that has to be inspected.
All right, so I'm assuming, will you or Marilyn let them know that they have to be inspected? Is that something Marilyn will do, or don't you know? We'll find out.
I can talk to her either way. But they do have to be inspected. And the other gentleman that came in, 140 Cross Road, has 5 dogs and he wanted to license them, but you can't license 5 dogs individually. They have to have a kennel license. But he left because he's saying that not all dogs can be on premises, but they are all there. So that's...
So how does a kennel license work? Is that at your discretion to issue one, or is it just anyone can get one? How does...
Anybody can get one with 5 dogs or more, but I have a report I have to fill out, go there, inspect, and I have to make sure there's enough room for as many dogs as they have.
Is there like guidelines to follow for minimum square footage to accessory?
There is, and actually I didn't bring that binder, it's an other one, this is just the always law that I brought. So, but I'm pretty sure up at, the cheese rolls, is that true?
Yeah.
I'm sure they've got licenses through the state. I'm sure.
So.
I'm sure. But
They've been in operation for quite a while. So.
Yes, they have, but it does need to be inspected.
Okay.
So I can talk to Marilyn.
Talk to Marilyn, see.
What she wants to do, if I call her. So, on that one. And when I was talking to Mike Williams, when I took on the animal control office, he also did animal inspections, and I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
But I wasn't aware because I did bring that up at the very first one. You said no, Board of Health did that, so that's where I was kind of confused.
Yeah.
But that is fine. I'm certified in that, and I do have that too.
Okay.
He did say he didn't do them, was it last year, because he was out before the inspections. Usually I do them late September, October, the inspections, because I'm also the town of Florida's and animal inspector.
Okay.
So, I don't know if the book was gonna come here, but I will be receiving a book, a ticket book, where I need to fill it all out, so.
Okay, so you're working with him and whatever.
Yeah, he gave me all that stuff, and for you guys to be aware, any wild animals, the ACOs don't deal with. It's the EPOs.
Okay.
Because I had someone call me about a raccoon. It really depends what the situation is, but they try to keep the ACOs away from wild animals.
Okay. Which makes sense.
you know, and then he gave me a ticket book for roadkill. ACOs don't do that. I think he did it because he was a officer.
Right, he was also
So,
chief of police.
so I don't do
Okay,
that.
Understandable.
Yep.
yeah,
That's all ACOs.
okay.
I mean, the EPOs.
All right, and I know, I want to go over more, but when you're here, you're talking about some equipment that we didn't know if Mike had or whatever, I think it was gloves or whatever like that. So you talked with him, and are you all set?
Yep, he did make room. He did give me a key
To the garage.
to the garage.
Okay,
And he did tell me that he doesn't really pick up animals. If he does during the day, he'll ride around and see whose it is. And that's what I would do anyway. But if I had to house an animal, most likely I would bring it to my own home. I'm trying to build something
okay,
on my property for you guys, because Mike is saying that the mayor of North Adams is not allowing Clarksburg to bring animals down there.
okay,
So I'm gonna try to make something at my home,
all
a
right.
structure where I can at least house at least one.
Huh.
I do have a dog kennel,
Okay.
so, but
Okay,
if I do pick an animal, it will be going up to Florida Mountain, I'm out, yeah.
Just a question, is there a reason why they won't take them in North Adams?
Because the ACO for North Adams itself has a spot down there, so there's not enough room
To accommodate another
to
community.
accommodate, another town.
Yeah, I think there actually North End only has 2 kennels themselves.
Oh, they do?
Right, so,
Okay. What did we do before? When she had an animal?
she took care of that. Really never amongst us, to be honest with you, I don't know,
I was just curious.
I think sometimes before, maybe like he worked with North Adams, rural version that something had been down there, previously, but I know their situation's kind of changed, in the last 6 months with their new housing down there at No Pond.
right, there were no cars left behind.
Yeah,
There was room before they went there,
yeah.
but now there's,
Yeah, and Chief did tell you what space for it out there in the garage, the old police garage, if they have space for you, for storage, for some stuff for you.
okay,
Okay?
okay.
All right, thank you.
And thank you very much for your efforts on that, we appreciate it.
Everything you do. Okay, next I'd like to give a quick MVP update. We're running this grant that we're using with our designer is coming to an end the end of June. And we have to apply by April 4th to get the next grant, which is going to finalize all the design, get all the permits, and start with the engineering part of it. So the problem is April 4th is coming up, and we were supposed to vote tonight, but I got a call from Brittany down at Berkshire Regional Planning, and I guess a lot of the small towns are having trouble with not only the matching funds for grants, but getting these grants together, and Berkshire Regional Planning with Courtney and Brittany have been so good at it. Apparently, they're talking with the state, and the state is trying to decide if Berkshire Regional Planning can actually apply for the grant, and we wouldn't have any matching funds to go with it. It would help out the little towns, and since they're helping run a lot of grants anyway, they thought they were going to get word back this morning, but I called Brittany at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and she said they still haven't heard. They should definitely hear in the next couple of days. The only problem is going to be for us is when they do hear, we're going to have to set up a special meeting, because we're not meeting again, because the 5th, we're having 2 Mondays, we're skipping because the 5th is...
Yeah, so we talked about that this morning a little bit, but when we do that, I'd like to have a joint meeting with the school committee, select board, and finance,
Okay.
in reference to the budget too, to have discussions.
Okay.
So,
And,
try to coordinate that.
That would be good. I know that the thing of it is, time is of the essence, so it may possibly be we try to set up a meeting for next Monday. If that comes in, or whatever days we have, Ron will have to be in touch or emails.
Well, I'll just reach out to you.
We're going to have to do something quick when we get word for it. So that's that for that. And we got to review and renew the 4th quarter sewer commitment. So at the board meeting held on March 17th, 2025, the select board acting as the town sewer commissions, will motion to approve the FY '25 budget fourth quarter sewer commitment. The sewer is $101,234.37. The water is $3,020, totaling $104,254.37. So if we could have a motion to...
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. And then we can sign that. A quick update on grants. There's a few things that happened. We have a ADA grant that we put in last year, and I just remember a couple of years ago, Sandy, you were on the committee, did a lot of work going through all the buildings. I think it was called a self-evaluation we did for all the buildings. And Carl put in for one big grant to fix all the buildings. Well, we got it rejected, and then we got it rejected again this year. So Ron and I actually got, Courtney gave us a person we called that was in charge of the grants to ask, what are we doing wrong? You know, we don't want to just keep applying and have it rejected. So Evan George was his name. Yes. He said that the problem is when these grants come in, if they're so big for 3 buildings, they're so competitive that they want to give as much money as they can to every town. So the suggestion was to either do one building at a time or break it up into smaller grant. So our decision, and I don't think we have to make it tonight, even though again, these grants, the timelines are running out for some of them are in April. What building do we want to focus on to put in for? Should it be the school, should it be the senior center, community center, or should it be town hall? And I'm not sure if we're ready to make that decision tonight, or if you want to think about it.
Well, it opens May 1st, so, we have time, that's a decision, there's a lot of moving parts here, so.
Yeah, I think the hard part is if we're, depending on what direction we go in with the school, to apply for an ADA grant for projects at the school when, you know, if there's an off chance or a possibility that we're gonna renovate or build a new school, you're kind of throwing good money at bad, but at the same time.
So why don't we postpone that since we have time? But I wanted to let you guys know that we got...
We need to focus, we need to focus on one particular area instead of collectively.
We do, and all the buildings obviously need to have ADA upgrades. So hopefully by doing that, it may take 3 years, but we can apply every year and maybe get the work done. I mentioned about the MVP grant. I know the Green Community grant is on your mind.
Yeah, we got Clarksburg School got awarded almost $23,000 for a heat pump for your hot water system.
Right.
Yeah, so I got the contract in there. In fact, Bob, you just got to sign it, except because your name's on the bottom.
Okay.
And then we'll send that all in, but so.
All right. And then the One Stop program, which are several grants we can apply for. We don't qualify for someone like for housing and things like that, but I wanted to keep people informed. Ron and Kyle we're all set at putting in for the...
It's got a strap there in for southern Middle Road, so we'll get that all together and get that in. That's $1.2 million. And that includes culverts and everything, so.
So hopefully we can get that done.
Yeah, we just gotta be careful, just put too much in. I talked to them a lot, and just, you gotta manage everything too, so.
You got me, and you don't want to put in competing grants with yourself.
Yeah.
You don't want to be competing with yourself. So Lower Middle Road is definitely the top priority. The other thing is we had a phone Zoom meeting, Ron and I, with Amber Carr for the West Road Culvert project. And we do have a grant doing the design that Foresight is doing. But there has been some issues because the grant was for $180,000. And that was if all the engineering and whatever is going to be done so we can go for the next step. We aren't there yet. They're just starting this going up. So they wanted to reduce the grant, and we're having discussion. And I mentioned that Courtney from Berkshire Regional Planning is looking at the next step. Like once we get the engineering done, we can apply for the bigger grant. This is, they think this culvert's going to cost up around $1 million to fix, which is unbelievable, but it's a big culvert. So anyway, Ron and I and Foresight, Kyle, and Courtney I'll put in dates that we can meet, so we're gonna have another Zoom meeting and discuss what we have to do on that, but I just wanna make sure.
See the update on that?
I'm in the
It might be next week.
Yeah, might be next week, it was supposed to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Courtney couldn't make it, so, we'll get there. But I just wanna let you guys know that there are little issues with that. Another thing that, this year, I don't see how we can do anything with it, but I did go over to, Tom Pelzinski, who owns the mill buildings over here. He's president by I.R. Baker. And I noticed when I was reading through the one-stop programs, there are grants for businesses and possibly towns, depending on who owns things, and a joint venture, to renovate some old mill stores or storefronts, and they will possibly give tax incentives and money to help do that. So I just let him know that, because they didn't have any idea, so he was gonna also check that stuff out. So we're just trying to look at all possibilities, get as many grants as we can for the town. So I wanted to give that update. Ron, you wanna add anything?
Let's see, you want to touch on the school renovations, but...
Yeah, that's gonna be next, so we'll get some time here, yeah?
Can I ask about the Safe Routes to School grant, where that stands?
For what?
Safe Routes. Safe
Oh,
Routes.
Safe Routes?
Yeah.
Yes, where that stands is they were talking to the MVP people, because both projects have got to coordinate together. And we had a joint meeting back a while ago, and they said that they didn't see how they connect the school down to the senior center, and the problem is from the school down to the town field, because there's two property owners there, land takings, and I didn't realize the Safe Routes have to have, I'm gonna forget how many feet, but it's like 15 feet, they have to have, I don't know if it's ownership or right-of-way of, which is a lot. If you notice those houses, their properties are right on the line. So they said that that possibly could end up in court. It could be a lot of money for land takings or whatever town wants to do. So they were not for that at all. They said that they didn't want to get involved in that. And then they said if they keep on the same side of the street as those houses that come down to town field, that they'd have to have a protection wall to protect them. They said those are very expensive. So, to make a long story short, they said they were fine with going from the senior center all the way down to that area where a crosswalk's gonna go across, but it's from there up to the school that they don't know what to do. So they wanted to say they can possibly meet to where trails are gonna come down from the school, but then the issue came, how are we gonna keep trails open all year round for emergencies? And of course, we talked about that before, that could we have a driveway, going around? And they thought that was a great idea, but they aren't part of it. So anyway, where we left it is we have a call into them, and the man that's in charge of it was on vacation last week, and he's gonna talk to Courtney and myself or whatever to see if possibly they can run a sidewalk up the other side of the street by the TPW. There may be some issues there with wetlands, I'm not sure. But if they could go out with the DPW area, have a crosswalk go across there to meet with the parking lot, maybe where a driveway or a trail will eventually go, that they may be for. So we're gonna see what they think about all that. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, the school. Obviously, we all sort of at a crossroad here where what are we going to do? And I've been really investigating and beating my head against the wall, trying to figure out what would be best for the town and the school and for everybody involved. And of course, I'll let everybody talk. I'll go first. It's just my big fear is that we can't afford a new school. And I'm just looking at North Adams, just to give some quick figures. They just passed for a new school around there, it's gonna be like $20 million that they're gonna have to pay for it. And I looked, their budget is about $50 million, ours is $5 million for the town, so it's 10 times bigger. Their school budget is $21 million, ours is $3 million, so it's about that, according to Berkshire's, and that's about 7 times what we have. $1 on that tax rate raises nearly $1 million. $1 on our tax rate only raises $167,000, so like 6 times more they get for that dollar of tax. And their population is about 12,500, ours is 1,650. They have about 7.5 times. So putting that in perspective, if we say we're like a sixth of them, I'll take the lowest number, not the 10 times that their budget is, but like a sixth, that means that a sixth of 20 million would be about 3.3 million for us to have a ratio, just something to go by. And of course, 3.3 million from the town is not going to build a new school. And so if we put up, I looked at it and said, okay, about 3 times that would bring us up to like 11 million, which might be something that Clarksburg did do, get a new school. That would be like them having their share up to like 60 million, which their town would have never voted for.
Well, you don't know that though, Bob.
Well, you're not supposed to vote.
You're not gonna throw hypotheticals out there.
Okay, I'm trying to be realistic. But I really don't see the town, in my opinion, back in the new school. So with that said, I'll let Colton and Dan give their opinion, but I don't see that's gonna be an option.
Can
Sandy?
I just ask, the 11 million, is that Clarksburg's portion of your projection, or is that the full amount?
It was an estimate of the Clarksburg.
Yeah, listen, okay, that's a pie in the sky number that was brought up. In all reality, and those guys can jump in on this, and I'll come in later, but I'll just let you know from my angle at 160 feet, whatever. But anyways, go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead, Colton.
No, I think, the biggest thing we talked about last meeting was to give the residents, I think, a true idea of what the options are at this point to do nothing, which I think we've trending in a particular direction, in my personal opinion. Renovation, where I think the town would fund it, I don't think it's possible, because I think the renovations that do need to be completed to bring, I think, the school really into even moderate compliance, from my estimations are probably, as Ron had said, probably somewhere in that 10 to 11 million ballpark. And this is, like I said, all fairly hypothetical. Now, if we were to apply for the MSBA to do a new school, obviously reimbursement rates are better if the state's involved, and at that point, we get a brand-new facility. This is something we're not going to have to worry about for, the next, 30-plus years. I think the schools that are being constructed nowadays are built, I think, a little bit longer to last, a little more economically, and I think environmentally friendly, in regards to heating, cooling, et cetera. Technology's, I think, come a long way. I think Bob and I are on very different ends of the spectrum on this. Me being a little bit younger, I kind of look at the long-term feasibility of the town. It's an investment back into the town. I think that's been, I don't want to say neglected, but I think, the reference I've continuously, kind of fallen back on is the can has been kicked down the road for quite some time, hoping that this problem was A, either going to go away, or B, some magical resolution was going to come, and unfortunately, we're at this position where the can was kicked down the road for too long, and now we are where we are. I personally think that if the school is not addressed, I think the town loses a considerable amount of value. I think that is one of the biggest driving factors for why people move into Clarksburg, is to be able to send their kids to school there. I don't think it's fair that, kids in the past that, had a decent school and decent learning environment, and it's just progressively gotten worse. I just think we have to address this. I think the town, like Bob said, is at a crossroads. I think we have to determine what the town's going to look like in the next 20 to 30 years. And my personal opinion, I think the school needs to be the key component of that.
Dan?
I agree with a lot of what Colton says, and also, portion of what Bob says also. I'm a money-conscious person, without, don't go crazy. I'm having a hard time kind of getting behind either side until I know concrete numbers on things. You know, over the past month, I've done 2 walkthroughs with the school, one with a project manager that oversaw some other school projects, and also a contractor that the MSBA hires to do inspections, and both of them pointed out a lot of things that scared me, that I guess I didn't realize how tough a shape some things were and what has to be brought up to code if we start digging into things. And I feel if we're trying to fund a renovation project ourselves without any backing, it doesn't make sense to put $6 to $8 million into the school with a ton of money. And I would much rather go do school if there's gonna be 11 million and have everything brand new instead of just trying to do it piece by piece here, because at the end of the day, you know, there's still gonna be things that are still gonna need to be done. You know, we're not gonna have a full, you know, complete renovation, trying to just renovate it ourselves. So that's my thoughts on it at this time until we really have concrete numbers, you know, I'm kind of like, I'm a teeter of both days of which way, you know, I'm worried about where we do our tax rate. Like myself, I don't want to see my taxes go up 50%, you know, like, but if it's something manageable where it's 15 to 20%, maybe people can get behind that. I guess if we won't really, you know, until we really have concrete numbers, it's going to be tough to really try to pitch it to, you know, our townspeople.
Yeah, and because we're at odds, and obviously, well, we can come up with numbers that we want, that's why we are trying to have the house, the school evaluated, and we're trying to look into so we do have the right numbers. There are a couple of things for people at home especially, because I think we understand that, but a lot of people, I feel, don't understand what reevaluation does. You have a reevaluation, which you're going at now. When you have a reevaluation, that takes care of 10 years. It's done every 10 years. It brings all the property values up to where they should be. So the tax rate goes down because your property values go up. So your taxes actually remain the same, and that's why ours has been dropping this year. We're down to $13. But what will happen over the next 10 years to counteract inflation, it gradually goes up. It'll go up to 16, 17, 18. You reach 10 years, you reach your valuation, it goes back down. So that's why that happens. I just want to make sure people understand it's not just about the tax rate. Because people can say, oh, the taxes are going down. Well, taxes really haven't gone down. The tax rate has, but our valuations have gone up. And then the hardest part for Clarksburg, which none of us can have anything to do about, is again, $1 on our tax rate only raises $167,000. That's peanuts, and there's not a lot we can do about that. So what we're going to do is try to get all the information we can as soon as possible, and try to come up with a plan. And again, we're even talking about trying to get a ballot question or something out there where we can get a feel for the people. Because, again, I can say, oh, it'll never pass, or, well, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. So our opinions are our opinions. And
Well, I think the realistic timeline, I would assume, is because if we're going to do this, and obviously, it's easy to reference back to 7 years ago when this was, attempted the last time, and depending on who you talk to, some people say it was close, one vote, went back for a second. I think you argue semantics at that point. I obviously think the demographics of the town have changed quite dramatically, in favor of pushing for a new school, but I think if we're going to do this, it needs to be rolled out correctly. There needs to be a allotted amount of time for everyone to really digest this. We need to have the concrete numbers. So if we were, I think, to do something, we probably wouldn't, take any sort of a pulse or vote probably until, I'd say, early fall, somewhere, maybe around the general, or probably, primary election time or around the general election, depending on, what there is for this year, just to give people an idea. Because if we try to rush this and it fails, or if we rush this and it passes, everyone's going to be mad on either side. I think if we have to do this, we have to make a decision one way or the other. And one thing I do want to say is I know there's a lot of people that have kind of thrown it out there that, I've made some comments in recent months about my position where this is. I understand the tax burden that falls back on the residents. I get that. I completely understand. I 100% feel for, seniors that are on a fixed income. That's a big burden for people to absorb. But at the same time, I still feel strongly that if we don't do anything, the negative impacts in the long run are going to be so much worse I think for the town, the valuations of our homes, you start eliminating, I think, the key component of the town. It doesn't matter what our tax rate's at, the homes aren't gonna be worth, even remotely close to what they are because of not having those services. So we want to do this right, we want to roll this out correctly. It's, unfortunately, like everything else, it'll probably get somewhat contentious. And unfortunately, that's how life goes at this point. We have to make the hard decisions, what's in the best interest of the town. People need to come forward, be active, and participate in the discussion, and then we'll make an informed decision from there.
Okay, and that brings us to the next point, is the dilemma we have is the school roof. We have bids here, and I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at them. I did look at them all. I'm not sure if we're ready at this meeting. Since we're meeting next week, we maybe could make sure everybody sees them, and then next week make a decision. But we have to make a decision in the meantime. Again, and I guess it's my opinion, it's like the school roof has got to be fixed. Do we try to get away with as cheap as we can and patch it so people can get through because we got to wait and see what happens, or we put on a new roof and we'll probably have to do a debt exclusion for $500,000 to do this. And how will that impact people? Say, oh, you're going to do that, you're putting in another $500,000 in the school? And I don't know how that's all going to, it's a dilemma, it's a no-win situation. But we have to make a decision soon, I would say within the next week. How are we going to proceed with that? So, Brian, I know if you want to...
No, I just to go back to the very beginning, I've been spending a lot of time on this school project because I think it's very, very important to the community. The school has value here. But also, I had a meeting this morning, we were talking about I&I issues, sewer issues, there's a lot of things, but the biggest thing for me is I'll be coming to this board here because I'm going to have an appraisal done of the school to get a fair market value of the school, okay? So, talking to the appraisers, somewhere around $3,000 to have that done. Then John sent me the information today to have someone go back into the school and hit all the checklists on everything. So, what's important, and very, very important, and I stress this because I want to do it right, I asked the clerk to put $2,000 aside for special election, okay? Because I know the last, I wasn't here, I had just moved to the town, but I wasn't involved in all of that, and I heard big to-do, and it got out of control. So, on my end, I want to do my due diligence to get every figure I have to give, I want to have a couple of informational meetings, okay, to the residents and let them know, hey, this is where we're at, this is what it's going to cost you per thousand, and if you don't know, this is the other option that we got to have. We have to think about if we're not going to invest in that school, and it does need work. We've been through it twice, and it was very eye-opening to me. And I often thought maybe a rehab project would work there. But to be very honest with you, I don't think it's to the point where it needs a whole thing. Now, can the town carry that kind of debt load for 30 or 40 years? I think mass building will go up 30 or 40 years, I don't know, I forget. And if it's 70 and 30%, is it 70% from the state, 30% we would have to carry. But what I want to do on my end is just give you the most accurate numbers I can. And the direct effect it will have, and the amount of time it will have on the tax rate. And if you don't go that route, then here's Plan B, where we got a plan to take them children out of there and bring them to North Adams, wherever we bring them, okay?
Rob, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I think there needs to be, if there's a way to calculate what our obligations would be on the school choice side, because from the limited media coverage so far and discussions online that have ensued after certain articles have come out, it's been a very lively discussion by a few very loud, select people, and you can leave that right in there, Tammy. My concern is you're going to get a driving force from North Adams encouraging, I think, one position, because to them, you've already seen some of the, discussion so far in North Adams that the enrollment numbers are coming down, that you look at some of the student, the population projections are going down, which we had a discussion with Superintendent Franzoni. we're kind of the anomaly in Clarksburg, where the numbers are actually increasing and going up, and the school choice is going down. My concern is you're just gonna get that massive push from interested parties, I think, outside the town. They're gonna encourage one direction more than the other. I think that needs to be laid out to an extent too, that yes, it might look like a lower number if you go the school choice route, but you eliminate all identity, I think, at that point that the town of Clarksburg has. I just think that needs to be hammered home, because there is gonna be a lot, just like there was 7 years ago, because mysteriously it wasn't necessarily just Clarksburg residents that were pushing one narrative over the other. You had a lot of outside influence that was pushing in different directions. I just think that needs to be established early, because we're already kind of seeing it when the discussion gets brought up.
Yeah, if I can through the chair, that's why I want to get all that information out there to everybody. Even if we can even have a walkthrough for the residents to actually walk through and visualize it themselves. But the biggest thing for me, and I want to have a ballot question. I don't want any cards, yellow cards, but I want the people to have the ability to go in and vote and not worry about anything. And I think that's very important, and I think if we go to a ballot question, I can get ballots to people that normally wouldn't come out and vote. Because it's important, you need to fill the full
Community.
of the town, because, as important as a school is to this area, what I see every day, there's a bunch of other things that are just as important. Infrastructure, roads. I get people that call me and they say, yeah, well, we'd support a school. Then I get people that call and say, hey, no way. And I understand that, and I respect that. I respect their opinion, But for me to do my job, I have to give all the information to everybody. The good, the bad, the ugly. This is what we do if we go for a school. If we don't go for a school, this is going to be the direct effect. And we still need to maintain that building no matter if somebody's in there or not in there. Okay, so that's really important too. So yes, we talked about, I think about this, if we're able to get a project through, do we do the roof and take $400,000 or $500,000, invest in the roof and just be torn down, or do we patch it? But I think right now, ideally, I would love to have all the information in and then have some informational meetings in September for the school towards that time, and then maybe have a ballot question. Maybe it would make sense to go to November or October, but I did have the clerk set aside money for a special election. So I want to do it that way, but I want to make sure everybody gets all the right information, so.
And that's another piece that we mentioned in the school. A lot of people always felt the school belongs down to the town field. Wouldn't that be great? But it can't be a town field. It's wetlands. It's the flood control. We can't even get walks there, and a paid parking lot they're fighting us for. So it can't go there. So would the school have to replace the school that's there? So is that building going to be torn down, or is the school go somewhere else? For if that was the case, then we want to put the new roof on, because maybe it'd be only housing someday, or who knows what. I just don't know. But that also, we got to think about, again, coming back, are we going to replace the roof and put money into it? And if we don't, what are we going to do with our children? So there's still, what bothers me is we need to make quick decisions, but yet we need to have all the information, and it all takes time. So I don't know if Tara or Sandy, if you want to comment on anything, or feel free.
I can just, in thinking back to how it was with the last vote, and I may be remembering wrong, but it really felt like the way it was presented was, we need a new school, we're going to either vote for a new school, or we're going to just continue doing what we're doing. And I think now we're at the point where you can't just continue doing what you're doing, and it really has to be, are you going to go with a new school, are you going to go with a renovation, or are you going to close the school down? It's not a case of, are we doing this or not? It's a case of, here's our scenarios, and we have to pick one.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's very true too.
Yeah, and that's why we also have to meet with North Adams. Actually, Ron and I are going to meet with the mayor over other issues also, supposedly on Wednesday, to talk about things. But we have to know what their view is and, you know, how much that's gonna cost us and everything like that too. So, anyway, I guess we can end it with that, is we're doing the best we can. We're working hard. We're trying to get the answers and,
So we want to hold off on the roof bids for,
I would say at least
Until next meeting.
Yeah, I think you guys got the time, because there's an extra bid that wasn't, I didn't forward on to you.
Yeah.
So you guys can actually look at everything.
we really gotta go through, because the thing is too, you can't necessarily just say,
Because there's a lot of exceptions in those bids.
exactly, you can't just go the wrong.
It seemed like it's all on the same page, so.
Yeah, so we need to look at it and come back and make a decision, because it's not gonna change anything, it's just, you know, we pick a contractor, and then, we'll, you know, ideally, if we do go ahead and do a roof, I wanna get it done during the summer break, get it all done then, and they know that too, their idea was to be done by September, in most cases, so, yeah, so another week, is we'll make a good educated decision on that, and then, we'll just do our thing. In the meantime, we just wanna let you know that we're gonna be having a proposal done up there, so I'm gonna keep that ball rolling that way, and, you know.
Well, maybe we can just get away with doing that middle section, kind of where it's leaking in like the classrooms, because I believe like over like the junior highs, there's no leaks up there right now, so I mean, maybe as a kind of, yeah. You know, in the middle right now, we do just that middle section, and the costs down, and,
I think
Yeah.
it's wise to just do the middle section if you're
yeah,
going to do something.
yeah, that keeps it, that'll keep our costs down on it, because I mean, realistically, I mean, even if we went through and the new school got passed, I mean, there's probably gonna be still at least 2 more years of, you know, classes in the,
At least, yeah.
before 2 to 3 hours.
So we have to get this school up to where we can at least have students there for the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah, and I think the gentleman who walked through that one day with us, who has been a project manager, I talked to him about that idea of just, what if we just put the roof on now in the middle section? What's the impact if we did eventually have a renovation in the building? And he didn't think that, you know, he thought you could still maintain it. You would have to make some adjustments for HVAC or things like that, but he thought it was, you know, it could stay probably and stay. So it's not like you're losing money.
No, you're putting a Band-Aid on it just to
But
get
you're
just to get
right,
by.
and you're already 100%, so there's that. But we have to do something.
Yeah, we can't continue on in our school the way it is,
And I do appreciate how all of you are approaching this, truly. I have a lot of respect for how the conversation's going and the thoughtfulness that you're putting into all of this. You know, we really do appreciate it. Even the varied perspectives, you know, I mean, this is what's important, and this is how we have healthy discussion, and this is how we get to where we need to go. So thank you all for this.
Okay, any other discussion? We're all set on that. All right, thank you.
Any questions, Tammy, or no?
Good night.
Good night. Okay, so we,
Budget update.
the budget update for the Finance Committee meeting.
Yeah, I'll just touch on it real quick. Finance is going to, everybody, some people went away on the Finance Committee, they're returning on the 27th of this month, so all the budgets were asked to be in today. I did get a preliminary school budget, partial. We will have a joint meeting. Nothing concrete, but that's where we need to get together with the school committee.
No, I think it makes sense, get out, work on this.
Yeah, because they have different versions of where they should be, and I have a version where we should be.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's pretty much it. So we'll be going the following week we'll be going into meetings, start our finance meeting, so with each department going through.
Okay, we also have some meeting minutes that
Make a motion to approve the notes as written.
All right. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And are there any public comments? And then one last thing I'd like to say.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Just a procedure, you should abstain because you weren't at some of those meetings.
Well, you're right, I didn't sign this.
Yeah, just make sure.
I didn't sign, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, I would like for our viewers, we only have another week to get nomination papers in. We have a lot of open seats, and I just ask that people please think about running for some of these positions on the planning board, there's a select board position open, and other positions, that it doesn't take a lot of time for everyone to do this. People need to be involved. It is so important that people volunteer to keep this town running and to hear all sides of the issues. So please, think about coming down and taking out nomination papers and running for some of these positions. They're so important. Anybody else have anything to say?
It's easy to complain from the sidelines.
No, because I echo Bob's statement, so it's very, very important. It's just that, it just seems like there's not a lot of interest. And it's like anything else, it's like, it is, you're donating your time, civic duty to your town. I'd like to see more people, one person pulled out papers for the select board and moderator, same person. So if you're out there and you're watching tonight, think about pitching into your town, you know. It's, sometimes it's a lot of fun, sometimes it isn't, but, you know, you're doing the right thing, so.
All right, thank you. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.